Hell yeah, let's get people pumped. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the show. What up, Billy?
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing good. It's nice, nice, beautiful day out here. You could tell it's nice and sunny because my whole background was all washed out from the window. Enjoying the nice weather we have in New York for now. What's going on with you, Billy? It's nice and early over there.
Oh, you got some good weather?
Decent. It's supposed to like rain or snow for the next like 4 or 5 days or something, but today it's nice out at least.
Okay, hopefully it's like the last rain or snow you get on that end.
Hopefully, the groundhog said that we're supposed to get spring early this year, so hopefully they're correct. Chuck, good old Chuck.
That's a reliable source as any.
Yeah, I mean, same thing as the Farmer's Almanac, right?
What is it? Patonky Phil? What's the name?
What's that?
From Groundhog Day?
Oh, I have no idea. I have no idea.
Okay. Let me adjust this. But yeah, welcome. Episode 142. We had an array of episodes at Winter Clash, and we haven't had an episode since. We were very busy. We had Bitter Cold, and after Bitter Cold, I was like deathly ill for like a week. And I'm finally I'm at a place where I'm like 85%, but I wasn't able to do anything, wasn't able to do work. I was just sweating it out in my bed. So everyone got sick at Winter Clash. Yeah, like a lot of people did get sick at Winter Clash. And I was like, oh, we got lucky and completely avoided that. And I had a feeling like you can't, avoid that twice at two big events that are like around the winter when people are going around, you're at the booth, you're talking to people are really close proximity. And so to those who got sick during Bitter Cold, I did too. And now we're back though.
Yeah, I got sick during Winter Clash. I know a bunch of other people did too. I was like, as long as I'm okay for Bitter Cold, I'll be fine. And same thing, I was like in bed for like a week or like on the couch. And then Bitter Cold came and I just like lost my voice from talking to so many people. It was like just these events, you just get so involved with everybody. Everyone's, you're catching up with all these people. And I just like, I'm not big of a talker despite having a podcast. But I lost my voice like the first day. I was like, damn, I'm lucky this wasn't like a multi-day event. I wouldn't have been able to hang.
Yeah, I'm gonna start going to the events with like forget like a mask, like an N95. I'm gonna come with like a COVID gas mask, sweatsuit, like a spacesuit, like
like E.T., like the guys from E.T.
Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna like talk, and it's gonna have a screen under here where like words are gonna come out, and I'm just gonna like nod and shake my head in like agreement or disagreement.
It's worth it though. It's worth it though. Like I got sick, sure, but I regret nothing.
Yeah. If you hear my wife in the background with random coughs, she's also sick too. She's gonna be like, I got her sick.
Thought that was the cat.
And the what?
I thought that was the cat.
No, it wasn't the cat. That's my wife. So yes, welcome. So I'm very excited to be back. We are finally in California. We normally have pretty good weather, but we had like a really cold February. We had like a super rainy January.
I heard. And
now we're finally starting to get, which is weird to say in California because we normally have it, but we're finally starting to get some good weather. And it's cool. So happy to be back, been able to skate a little bit after being sick. And
that was nice. I like the clips.
Thank you.
Thanks. True front torque still. True front torque. Ooh.
Yeah, I brought it back. I was skating flat the other day, and I was like, you know what? My friend switched to anti, and he was just sliding all over town at the skate park. No wheel bite, no like that sound, the mouse at like the flat spot. I think some people like that sound. You know what I mean? But historically, I never really heard it because I was like an anti skater for like most of my skating. So
that could be a trend in the future. The squeak somehow becomes popular. Who knows?
Yeah, for me, I personally never was like, oh, I like that because I didn't experience it being an anti rock skater for most of my life. But I was like, dang, he's just sliding and I don't hear any squeaking. That sounds fun. So set up a nice like little anti setup and it's been cool. Been having fun lately.
I did the opposite. When I did my blank review, I wrote them stock. I wanted to write them stock, and they come anti-rocker stock, and I'm like, oh, this is my opportunity to do all these things that we had the discussion about. Try anti-rocker, and I hated it so much. I couldn't roll. I fell more times rolling on the ground because I couldn't turn like I used to. I would just like trip pretty much over my feet. I'm like, I'm happy to go back to flat. So it just shows the dynamic right here about the pros and cons of flat and anti-rocker, that we're both so different and we both love the complete opposite.
Yeah, you're riding like big flat too, like most of the time lately, right? I saw
Yeah.
you at a Faber the other day. Those are like big wheel flat, right?
Yeah, those are 84s.
84. I love how like you were able to just adapt to that after like years of skating anti and just like really took to it really well. It's cool to see.
It's so fun. I made a video about that I'm going to post in the Jump Street YouTube page next week. So check that out. Crazy segue right there.
That's what's up. Hell yeah. What do we got? Oh, so man, it's been a while. At the Winter Clash, I didn't do the spiel at the Winter Clash.
We had no time.
So we have a time limit. So it's been a while since I've done the spiel, but please, if you don't already, follow us on all of our social media platforms. We have an Instagram you could follow. We have a Facebook. You can give us a like. We have a YouTube page. You can hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. If you like what you're hearing, you can leave a comment. You can share it. We find it very helpful. We have an iTunes. You can listen to us at work, just audio. And if you like what you're hearing, you can give us a 5-star rating. You could also give us a review. We find that very helpful, and it helps boost us to the top of the algorithm. And we also have a Patreon. You can be a Patreon for as little as $3 a month. And when you become a Patreon, you have access to all of our exclusive content, trick tips, which are called Inside Outs. We have 3 pieces. We have section reviews with some of our guests. Sometimes when they come on, we watch their old sections and we go through some commentary and go through some memories that they had experienced during the time of filming. And you get to ask questions ahead of time. If you have questions for future guests, you got to jump on it. People who's coming on the podcast before everyone else does, and you get to put forth a question. We ask your question on the show, and you are automatically entered to win something from our online store every month. It's a random drawing every month, and you could win a 5-panel hat. You could win a tank top. Summer's coming up. You could win a shirt. You could win a mug.
Look at all that good stuff on the store right there.
That's our online store right there if you're joining us. And that's what we got going on.
Good spiel, Billy, considering it's been a while.
It's been a while.
But you guys...
It's been a while.
You guys killed me this week with these names for our new Patreon supporters. So I'm going to try my best right here. I want to give a shout out to our new Patreon supporters. Phenomena Skate Team, Dale Delves, Jeremy Swartwout, Lucky Lopez, Tone Doe, LM Zirhan, Leon Hazen, Justin Jones, Ellie Legate, and Caleb Bell. Thank you all so much for supporting us on our Patreon. I just put up a video the other day also just talking about the pros and cons of sponsorship on our Patreon. It was a pretty good, popular video on the Patreon, so check that out if you haven't already. And like Billy said, every month we do a giveaway for all our Patreon supporters where you get to win one of whatever you want from our online store. Let me pull up the wheel real quick. Where's my thingy? Screen share. Where is it? Oh, here we go. Boom. There's the wheel with everyone's name in there. We're going to click and spin it for someone to win one of whatever they want from our online store. And the winner this month is... Oh, Joseph Scannella. The homie Joey Scannella. Congrats, Joey. We're going to hit you up. I could just text you and see what you want from our online store. But hell yeah, thank you for supporting. Thank you for supporting everybody. And yeah, let's move it on to our WTF this week. We have a WTF brought to us by Patreon supporter Chad. Oh, I know the name. I can't pronounce. Chad Vignel. I don't know if that's wrong or right, but we have Shelly Burla killing it with this really cool, really steezy set slide to some sort of alley topsoul. What are these called now? Because this is like the trend now also. Like the corner of the ledge where it meets the floor. Is there an
I don't know. I don't think I'm in the position to name this. But I like it. I really like a lot of that stuff. People seem like they're just having a lot of fun playing with some of these ideas at the skate park lately. So yeah. I love that. And
in the new basement video, Zephyr 4, they go in on this shit too. Like the toe slides on the corner where the ground meets the ledge and the heel slides and stuff. So it's really cool seeing that. It's like a new way to explore a ledge. Like you don't got to skate the top no more. You skate the floor now.
No, yeah, like that Zephyr 4 thing is out of control. And Elfie with Whispers or Wispies, I think is his Instagram name.
I forget his
Michael
last name.
Kraft.
Yes,
Kraft.
there you go. Michael Kraft. There you go. So
yeah, man.
Go ahead.
Okay. he's all over town with that kind of stuff. Just like ripping up like skate parks, like trying all these different things. It's cool to see a lot of those ideas like being played out in that way.
Yeah, Michael Krabs is one of my favorite skaters to watch right now. I remember at BitterCold, he was skating, and somebody came up to me, and they were like, "You know this kid?" And he shows me on Instagram, and I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "We just watched that in person live," and he was killing it, doing some shit at the skate park, and they were so hyped to see him skate live in person, which is really cool because he wasn't somebody who was like winning the comp or whatever, like one of the big names you would think of when you think of BitterCold, and people were just so hyped to watch him skate in person. So I don't know if he knows that or watches this podcast, but if you do, Michael, you have a lot of big fans out there.
Yeah, it's awesome to see a lot of that stuff, and hopefully in the summer we'll see some of that, him take some of that stuff to the streets like that. That'll be really cool to see like where that goes, because it's like right now it's just like ideas developing inside the skate park.
Yeah,
but I want to see like like what that application would look like on street. I'm really interested to see how far like a lot of those new ideas that he's bringing can go.
Yeah, that'll definitely fit in with the new basement video that's coming out, whatever it's called. Before we move on with our special guest, I want to give a shout out to our sponsor for this episode, Blank. If you were at the BitterCold Showdown, you were able to check out the Blank skates in person if you haven't seen them already. But the Blank team skate in Pigeon Blue is out now, available in U.S. sizes 6 to 12 and a half, with full shell size per full and half size. So the sizing on these skates fits awesome. I've been riding them for a while now, and I absolutely love them. They also have the hydrogen 60 millimeter wheels that come on the skates for sale now. They weren't available before. So definitely check them out. Available now worldwide at your favorite skate shop. Blank, thank you for sponsoring this video.
Apparently, I'm seeing in the group chat that they're called glides.
Just straight up glides?
Glides. I mean, it's good. It's a sensible name. I like it.
So then what would we call what Shelly did? Alley Topsoul Glide?
Like what Royale says to Alley Topsoul Glide? Okay, we're gonna have to look. I'm just reading this out of the group chat. I don't know. Like, so we're gonna have to check with some people and figure out what it is. But
we'll consult a few people afterwards and figure it out. But should we move it on with our guest now? Do we have anything else to talk about, Billy?
No, I'm actually really excited to have our guest on. For those who don't know, Daniel Kinney, our special guest, he's brought like one of the most popular events, one of the largest events in rollerblading history. He did it for over a decade. He brought it back after not having done it for a decade. Was this past weekend or the weekend prior? And it was really something amazing to see. It was like going back in a time machine. So I'm excited to have him on. I'm excited to go through these things. And yeah, I'm ready for our guest.
Let's get on, everyone. Welcome, Mr. Daniel Kinney.
Hey, guys.
What up, Daniel?
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing well. I did not get sick somehow from BitterCold after all the hugs and all the talking. I don't know how I escaped it. I usually always got sick. I did not.
You have the hometown advantage.
Yeah, I'm also coming from California, so I'm dealing with I'm not like, my body's not used to dealing with the cold in the same way anymore. And I don't know, maybe you have a high vitamin C diet. I don't know, hopefully something like that, but good for you.
That's the dust in the skate park and everything just doesn't help either. It's, it's a hard environment to get out of alive.
Definitely. But thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, of course.
To those who know, or to those who don't know, Daniel Kinney has been was running the BitterCold for over a decade, I believe. 13 BitterColds before it stopped, and then it was a 10-year break, and then it was one more time, which was, for me, it was like going in a time machine to 10 years ago. It just like, it was all the same faces, all the familiar faces, the same skate park that was that you had like the last few events at, and it was really cool to experience that. I guess we can start off with, I want to get into like you starting the first contest or running the first one that you did in 2000. But before that, I would like to talk about maybe your introduction to skating in general. How did you get started?
Oh yeah. That's crazy to think about. Neighbor, very early, Arlo, Senate, Halo, X Games, Ringer T. That was, that little moment on TV. It was the same generation where everyone was picking up a skateboard, and skateboarding just did not click with me. So to see the alternative, and then, eventually just getting, what were they, the rollerblade retro skates or rec skates, and, setting up part of a scaffolding in my grandparents' driveway, and that first kind of front side, that first time you slide, like, that's that hit that, it still gives, and, it never leaves you. That's really where it started. And then just kind of grew out from there, just kind of being, Midwest kid, skating skate parks in the winter, street in the summer, expanding, going to Chicago, going to Michigan, and all that sort of thing. That's really kind of, where it started with me.
That's cool. I know a lot of people from the Midwest had like hockey roots because of just like how much like the hockey scene is like strong up in Wisconsin, Minnesota. And I was wondering if that was like a part of your experience as well.
No, not at all. It was, get on some skates, learn to skate, find a 5-stair, that you can skate, and just, kind of go from there. Later in life, once I kind of was stopping to jump huge gaps and just all the stupid stuff that you're trying when you're first starting out, I realized how poor of an actual rollerblader I was. So, kind of transitioning that into the skate park, and really being able to skate so much better was kind of something that you end up learning kind of later and afterwards, where I would have loved that hockey experience to kind of, rip into the early days when my body was so much more forgiving, on skates. That would have been a ton of fun.
I look back on that too. The same thing. I'm like, I wish I learned proper skating a little better back in the day too. Yeah. I know hockey is a huge help for that too, because you're going really fast, you're carving really fast. And we've talked about it on the show before too, with any Canadian guests that we've had on. They all have hockey backgrounds, and they're all so good at actually skating. And it translates over so well to aggressive. A lot of people skip that stage, and most of us, I guess, who didn't have a hockey background, especially in like the 90s. We just saw people jumping on like a curb or a bench or whatever. We just wanted to throw ourselves at it and do that. Take the wheels out of our rec blades and just send it.
I mean, even something, it's nerdy, and of course we can talk about BitterCold, but even something as technical as like fakie shoulder, that's something you have to practice in hockey and be disciplined at to play defense. So like, you'll have your normal shoulder, but if I approach a quarter pipe with my fake shoulder, like my other shoulder, it feels like I'm in like a foreign land. It's so bizarre. It's such like a simple thing that a lot of people learn, but that, that's one of the kind of nuances to everything that just drives me crazy.
No, definitely. Like if you don't have like that traditional training from like hockey, or even like if you didn't grow up like skating skate parks, like you're more of like a street skater, then a lot of people like neglected to learn that very fundamental aspect of skating that'll help grow your skating and open up your trick vocabulary in that way. So I can completely relate to that, because I was like growing up skating street for years before I even tried to do anything along those lines.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, me too.
So when you started the first BitterCold, you were quite young. So how old were you, and what was the motivation behind starting this first event? And did you think it would grow to be as big as what it was, or if you were going to get any pros in general to come by? Like where did the motivation come from?
Yeah, that's all like really, really good questions. And, if there's anything that I'd love to communicate, today, it's that, how unqualified, how much of a nobody, how like, there really wasn't anything special about, I mean, there's really not so much special about me now, but going into that first event, it was nothing more than just kind of an enthusiasm for rollerblading and wanting to give something back and wanting to do something. It was at a time where X Games was waning. IMYTA had just gone off. The winter before, Backrack had done a street contest in Chicago. So it was just that changing of the tide where we were doing so many. It was almost DIY contests. We were doing so much stuff on our own and taking back, our culture from, the corporate, the presentation on ESPN and that sort of thing. And yeah, I was just a 16-year-old little, Midwest kid that, wanted to show the video I made and wanted to have a contest after, and then was like, oh, hey, you guys sponsored the video. Why don't you come have a trade show? And yeah, just the way it kind of all coalesced was really kind of magical. I mean, the first, I talked about it recently and kind of reminiscing, kind of promoting the event again. But yeah, we were setting up a trade show. I had to run some errands. Came back and kind of opened the garage door to the back room of the skate park. And I was like, holy shit, there's like 200 people here. Like, what the heck is going on? I was just expecting, small group of friends, maybe a couple dozen people, and it ended up being a couple hundred in this skate park for the very first event. And it was unreal. And then, I think I was so happy that Ben Weiss took me up on the offer, came out to BitterCold, took a bow, put his skates on, because, his performance in those early events is what really, solidified the lore and everything that surrounded the event. I mean, the moment in the first event, I've talked about it, so many times. It's like a fairy tale or a legend or some shit like that. It was literally just kind of this, support staircase coming down off the back of the vert ramp. Wobbly 2x4, 45-degree angle. He started skating that. The park owner's wife just went apeshit. She couldn't handle it. She didn't want him doing it. Walked out in the middle of all these kids, started screaming at him to get down, just yelling at him. And he proceeded to 270 soul and then fakie 3 kind grind this thing. Everybody just lost their goddamn mind. Mm-hmm. And that was that lightning in a bottle moment that I think just solidified the event moving forward. And, from my perspective, and I think the thing that I was able to contribute to that is just, working at it, taking notes, figuring out what worked, pushing, promoting, doing all I could to help continue, to help grow, to do better, to make it something more than just kind of a one-off event. And I think that's really kind of where my contribution to the whole kind of cycle came in. But really, like I had said from the beginning, I didn't start with a lot of pull or a lot of money or any sort of factors like that gave me a leg up. I was, ultimately I was just the one willing to do the work and do it year after year after year after year after year after year for 13 years. And that was really kind of what separated the event and really kind of built it to what, people see today and what they revisited, 2 weeks ago.
That's an awesome answer, by the way. Thank you.
There's a lot going on here with this. There's a lot. I have.
Yeah,
so
where
much
you want to jump back in?
I was saying I have so much to talk about, and then 10 other things popped up. Continue though, Billy. I just wanted to.
No, well, I was gonna say it's cool to have success in your first event in such a way.
Yeah.
I might be mistaken here, but was Stockwell was also in attendance at the first one, or was that the second one? Jeff Stockwell. Third one. Oh my god.
First pros that showed up, because Daily Bread took notice after the first one. I think
right.
Eisinger or somebody was at the first one, and they included us on the Monsters of Roll tour as an amateur event the second year. So Richard and Mike Leaf came out. That was our first pro attendees the second year. And then the third year, it got, Stockwell came out. There was quite a few more people that came out. I think Stockwell came out, he was associated with 616 at the time. Vanderbaugh had sponsored him and supported him. I'm not sure if Vanderbaugh flew him out, but, that was one of the connections there.
That makes sense.
That's right. Yeah, I remember seeing that in Daily Bread, like the Daily Bread coverage, and being like, "What is this?" That was my first time being exposed to the event, and just like looking back in time, when things get like over like that long ago, like in the 15, 20 years ago range, I have an issue like distinguishing. Was that 2003 I saw that in Daily Bread, or was that
Yeah.
2001 I saw that in Daily Bread? Okay, so that was the third event there, and I
Yeah.
remember that's kind of the one that started getting. And it's cool to have Ben Weiss as an early supporter, but it was cool to see like Jeff Stockwell went out to such a big thing for someone from California to fly out to the Midwest in the middle of the winter. People who normally don't experience winter flying out for this event called BitterCold and being such a big part of it. And I really think that was while Ben Weiss was like obviously a huge catalyst, and I feel like that and like the Daily Bread coverage, Jeff going out in the Daily Bread coverage was something that like helped contribute to the snowballing of the event for the future.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I
Well,
remember.
and then you two were, I mean, Billy specifically, but then, 04, that was a whole nother just tidal wave shift of, moving that closer to the East Coast to New York. That just, I mean, that changed everything. It seemed like everybody from New York loaded up in like a dozen minivans and just showed up. And that was insane.
Was that the start of the Vertigo years?
Yeah, that was the first Vertigo year in 04,
Yeah,
and that was what really took it.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about the evolution of BitterCold too, because you started in 2001 at what skate park was that, by the way?
It was Blindside Sports. It was in Elkhart, Indiana. And I think one of the things to consider at that point was that they would only let us do the event on a Sunday, because for whatever reason they closed the skate park on Sunday because of Jesus, or I have no idea. Which is also the dumbest thing in the world, to close your skate park on a weekend. But anyway, so that allowed us to just kind of have the event on that day. And then that's kind of where we were doing the very dumb street stuff on Saturday for a little bit, because everybody was in town for the weekend, so it was something for us to do. And very dramatic, very unorganized, very hard to do a street event in the winter in the snow. Dumb, but it resulted in some really kind of cool moments and cool footage. But then when we moved to Vertigo in Boardman, Ohio in 04, the event was on a Saturday. That really was where I think things really kind of started to solidify quite a bit more.
Did you?
I'm sorry, Austin. I was going to say I completely forgot about the street aspect of it in the earlier ones. Wow, those edits were wild.
I'd kind of like to forget because it was so fucking stupid to do that.
It was.
It makes no sense.
Yeah. I tried finding it wasn't like a Live Plus or something like that, wasn't it? That there was an edit that showed, and I remember watching it being so confused. I'm like, I don't get what's going on here. Is this a street contest? It's a park contest. People are skating street. They have gloves on and hats and all this shit. And they're cess-lighting ice patches in the ground because it's so damn cold. And I was so confused by that. And I wanted to ask if there was any street aspect to it. But I guess it was just because people weren't in town on a Saturday to do something. And
so, I mean, there was loose, like, street event. It was never, as structured as anything like that. And again, in 03, Ben did some crazy stuff. Tim Adams showed up. We hit this rail, and it's just those crazy moments that if you're not really trying something, pushing something, there's so much more to it than just kind of the magic of it. But when you're at these locations and it just kind of starts to snow, and you're like, holy crap, and it's those moments it's those real life moments that you can get. From organizing an event, from having an event, from hosting an event, from going to an event, that you can't find in any other kind of place inside the rollerblading community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, agree about that too. And then, so we were talking about you moved it to Vertigo in Boardman, Ohio. What was the reason for the transition besides being able to have it on like a Saturday? Was there anything else? Because when I think about BitterCold, I still think about Vertigo. I guess the first thing that pops into my head. To me, those are like the quote, we all talk about the quote glory days. Like those were some of the glory days for me, like those road trips, being a teenager, driving out to Vertigo in Ohio. You had Steel Valley Meltdown, a little spin off to BitterCold. those are the days that I personally remember. So those events were massive. What was the reason for moving it to a different skate park? Because it moved again a few times after that too.
Yeah, so really, kind of the main reasons for all of our moves, except one, was the closing of the skate park. So Blindside in Elkhart was closing. So, and that was one of the things too that separated Bitter Cold from Hoedown, from Barn Burner, from even Super Hick. I mean, Super Hick went at a few different locations, but that was one of the things that separated us and gave us a chance for more longevity, is that we weren't beholden to one skate park. So when Blindside closed, we found Vertigo and we moved to Vertigo. And then when Vertigo was closing, we did the 1 year at the Flow in Columbus before ultimately settling down at Modern in Detroit.
Yeah. The Flow was that bike park, the big one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of, in hindsight, they rented out the space that we used for the trade show the year after we did it there. And, for whatever, in my head, I was like, oh my God, we don't have enough room. And in hindsight, we had that was the biggest space for a skate park I've ever been in my entire life at the Flow. That place was just massive. And in hindsight, we did have plenty of space to, do a trade show elsewhere in the park. I don't know why we did that, but, finding a home at Modern was really, great. And we really lucked out with all the locations that we, ever went to, because they were all great facilities, great hosts, and, had the type of obstacles, the type of things that were very, very appealing to this type of contest too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when I think about your story and the Bitter Cold thing, it's like really like, if you build it, they will come kind of thing. And, just keep on putting the years in, because you went from starting something and wanting to have it be done locally to it growing to this world-class thing where it was a thing you couldn't miss. Like, you think about CJ Wellsmore coming from Australia to these events, like, Soichiro and like all these people from like around the world, like like the best of the best, Alex Broskow, Chris Haffey, and like the most premier names in rollerblading. Did you envision that when you first started? Did you have a plan we're going to do this annually? Or was like the first one like, hey, we're just throwing this one-off thing, we're going to see how it goes, and then it just like kept on feeling like a commitment? Or how did that end up transpiring?
Yeah, I mean, if you would have told 16-year-old me that this is what it would have turned to, I would have never believed you. Like, total not in any realm of possibility of, where I thought it would go. Like I had mentioned, it was really just kind of, those Midwest companies, the Midwest contacts and people I had skated with. I just kind of wanted to bring them together. And really, from there, I think it was a combination of, we have the success, like, let's see what I can do with it. And then, once I really kind of got my head wrapped around what I was able to wield and what I was able to do with it, and the good and the positive that I was able to do with it, it was work. It was relentless. And, I think that's one of the things that came back doing it again this year, is that it's just a constant thought process for me of like, what if this happens? What if this happens? Can we do this better? Should I do this? And that just is really very consuming for me. And, kind of one of the main reasons that it's just not something that I can continue doing yearly, because I care so much about it and I want it to be such a special thing. And it's been such a special thing. So it was really that kind of combination of just taking what I found, what I did, and just pushing it as far as I possibly could with all the work that I could muster and put into it.
What was there ever a moment? Because I'm thinking back to the Vertigos, and it was like, you look at like how it's run at Modern, and like, wow, it's like a really well oiled machine. Like, especially toward the end there, and this past year that happened. Yeah. Was there ever a moment at Vertigo where you're like, I've created a monster. What have I done? Because sometimes looking back, it was really out of control. There was like, you think Ryan Ball and beer section, and just like this is kind of before. I mean, there weren't as many like. Fortunately, now we have like much more females participating in rollerblading, and we have more of that settling energy. But it was just like at the time, looking back, it was just like this skate park filled with crazy young kids, like super high testosterone, screaming beers, and was there ever a moment like, oh wow, like I created a monster? What have I done?
Yeah, I mean, there were definitely a lot of those moments. The ransacking of freaking Red Roof hotels,
Yes.
both in Indiana and Ohio. Jesus Christ!
Oh, we got banned. I think. Did we get banned from like the whole town? Wasn't that that's
no,
something?
no. I mean, I mean, I don't know for sure because I always tried to distance myself from that. Like, I'd never like checked into the hotels and was like, "Hey, nice to meet you. I brought all these, underage, testosterone-ridden, males into your hotel." That's not, something I went around doing or checked in with them after. Like, "Oh, are we good?"
Good move.
but yeah. I mean, the energy, and I think. For me, I think it went hand in hand. Is like it was out of control, but that energy and that enthusiasm is what fueled the event and what pushed it forward. So I think just the way that I kind of organize things, push things, kind of categorize things, give that energy an outlet. It was the fuel for the event. I mean, I remember. The first event at Vertigo, I didn't have a car then, so I kind of had to rely on rides to get there. And I was like late on Friday, which, is the most anxiety inducing thing that can happen in my life, is being late for something. But yeah, I showed up there and it was already, packed. The owner was like furious with me because I invited everybody and then like was showing up late. But, we were able to pull it together and, got on top of everything. And it was a great event. Obviously, we hosted it years later. But yeah, I can't, it's part of the event you can't really disown because it's what fueled it and what made it what it was just all that chaotic energy of us, getting our licenses, getting in a car, traveling, and getting all together. It was mayhem.
It was so fitting for the time, I think, because that's how it translates perfectly to how people skated back then too. Like we were wild and reckless. Hammers were like the biggest thing. Everyone was trying to one up each other, jumping off roofs, drop rails, killing ourselves. And that was just like so fitting, that event for the time. Because I remember going to other events too, like Super Hicks and Hoedowns and stuff, and they got like a little wild too. But I feel like BitterCold was always the craziest one. I don't know what changed from going from Texas to Atlanta to Ohio or wherever, Detroit, but it got way crazier at BitterCold than anywhere else.
Well, I mean, I think the skate parks had a lot to do with that. I mean, in hindsight, Vertigo was a fairly mellow park. They had that big, gigantic start section that was just kink rails, start box, a little bit of a drop ledge. It was a very technical contest then. And then at the flow, that we really didn't build much there. That was just a huge park to begin with. So that really just kind of lent itself to the skating then. And then, several conversations that I had with people, over this recent weekend was, again, the very, very dumb stuff that we built at Modern that still looking back, like, why did people skate that stuff? Like putting a giant rainbow rail over, just hanging.
That was insane.
12, 13 feet in the air over two quarter pipes. I don't know why everybody was like, oh, cool, a place to hang my t-shirt. Okay, let's have the rest of the contest. Like, I don't know why we did that, and I don't know why everybody skated it, but like, it was insane. Like the type of tricks that are done on the stupid stuff that we built still just blows my mind. And it was a very purposeful decision this year to not retread any of that. The park had already kind of defined itself in some new portions that were much more technical, much more mellow, much more fun, and enjoyable to skate for everybody. So we just kind of leaned into that a little bit more.
Yeah, I was curious about that for my bad, Billy. I was just saying I was curious about that for this year when it was going to happen. I was like, skating changed a lot in the last 10 years since the last BitterCold. So I'm like, are there going to be these 10-foot sub boxes over quarter pipes? Is there going to be a rainbow rail hanging from the roof? I do like that the rainbow rail still is at the skate park. It's just in a much safer area. But I think, I agree with you that this year's obstacles were a lot more tasteful and a lot more with the times too, because if there was that big sub box or big rainbow rail, I don't think it would have gotten as much attention as it would have gotten 10, 12 years ago.
Well, I mean, hell, even the one thing that we built that was a little less attainable, that large kink rail kind of in the, in the back section, kind of in between where we kind of set everybody up and where the quarter pipes were, I partly because the crowd, but partly, that just wasn't something that people wanted to skate. It was a little bit off the center of attention. And it was quite a bit more difficult than it looked, too. It started really mellow, but you had to be right on top of it towards the end, or you were going to be kind of flying off one way or the other, and it wasn't going to be all that enjoyable for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think those obstacles from back in the era where they're all those crazy obstacles, they were just like definitely reminiscent of the time in the era of skating where people were just trying to go bigger and bigger and bigger. And what you did at this event was much more reflective of what's kind of happening now, like using your brain, being technical, not having to be like extremely burly. Don't get me wrong, no disrespect to those who want to get burly. There's still room out there, and I still enjoy to watch that. But I think it was a more mature version of all that, and I think the event kind of ended up going in that same direction as well.
Yeah. It was very reflective, and the way everybody skated it was, just like I had hoped. Taking advantage of the existing obstacles, and then, of course, just having a lot of fun with those little tweaks and little additions that we had added. I mean, of course, the kink rail and the kink box that are there, those are staples, and those were part of their newer remodel and have been there for a couple of years already. So most of the stuff that was there was kind of already established. We just kind of, did our own little touches here and there.
Yeah, it's awesome to see that park is still able to sustain, was still there after like those events, and was, skate parks open and close all the time, and especially something like of that size. Like, how do you keep something that size going? And it was refreshing to see that, like, after like the last event 10 years ago, that Modern was still there, still thriving, and still able to host such events. So that was a really amazing thing to see.
Well, not just the park too, the shop too. The shop is doing great. They had their full blade wall out for the event, which is great. That George is always, since he started in, the skate shop business, has always been a huge proponent of rollerblading. So, he always goes above and beyond to kind of show his support that, it's not just a skateboard park where they support rollerblading too. Like, he's been there from the very beginning. So that's always really nice to see too. And that's really, the few things that came together that even made an encore possible was Modern skate park. I would have never even considered doing it again if we couldn't have done it at the park again.
Yeah.
Right. I can totally see that.
Yeah, a lot of people have all those memories. Part of the nostalgia, I think, was going back to Modern as well. It's a familiar face to everybody. Yeah. Going back to the Vertigo days, I have to ask about this. There's so much to talk about with you. But I have to ask about the less popular Steel Valley Meltdown, which was like the summer version of BitterCold, if I'm not mistaken, at Vertigo back when it was Ohio. What happened with that? That only lasted like a year or two, right?
Well, technically there were, it was right around the time of RFCC. Whatever the hell that rollerblade, the touring mechanism of, I think it was Sunshine's touring mechanism. I'm not really sure, but so the park owner on his own did kind of an RFCC tour stop in 05. And then, named it Steel Valley Meltdown and kind of an homage to BitterCold. And then, we got together, put our heads together and was like, hey, let's do it for real in 06. And did that. And, just to kind of see, because, in the world of rollerblading, everybody thinks they have the best idea in the world. And the idea that was pitched to the owner was like, oh, do it in the summer. You'll have so many more people show up. No, that's not how it works. So yeah, I mean, that was our shot at like, oh, hey, yeah, we'll try it in the summer. Maybe people can kind of coalesce and enjoy outdoor activities more, go to skate parks around the area, be part of a tour that you're not just kind of inside the whole time, but not at all. There was some good skating. That was one of the more insane performances by Colin Kelso at a contest. He just ripped that park. JC was there. It was a good event. It was fun, but yeah, it was not the same energy, not the same attendance as a BitterCold.
Mm-hmm. It makes sense. Like when you in the summer, people are out like skating the street more frequently, and in the winter, there's like nowhere to go, especially people in the north and like northeast, and so they're it makes sense, but the sentiment, it also makes sense as well. But that's why the BitterColds were so big, because people were kind of just locked up in their houses for so long, not able to skate, or when they did skate, they'd be freezing cold and trying to stay warm. And this was just bringing like such a different energy. So that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, that was one of the magical times of the date too, is it's in the Midwest. It's that you're getting so antsy at that point, and like spring feels so close. You're not really in that hibernating mode anymore, that you just like want to get out and you want to do something. So, I think that's part of, the energy that the contest has harnessed for all those years.
Yeah, we could definitely appreciate that, being from the Northeast, where, especially if you don't have a skate park by you or anything like that, there's like no skating going on until BitterCold happens. Yeah. Billy, do you remember the Steel Valley? I know everyone has their stories about all these events. You remember going to Steel Valley one year?
Oh, yeah.
Do you know what I'm going to say about Franco's car? We drove in Franco's car. We crammed like 10 of us, the Be Unique days, like Chris Courtney, probably Alex Ramel, and Franco's dashboard didn't work. So we didn't know how much gas we had in the car. We ran out of gas in the middle of nowhere on the highway, in the middle of like Ohio. And there was nothing around. You literally look around, there's nothing around. We weren't close to any civilization. It was 100 degrees. And Billy, you, from what I remember, you and Courtney Brown put your skates on and you skated down the highway off the exit ramp, and you just went left or right and you picked a direction and went to a town to get gas. You don't remember that?
I 100% remember that.
That was insane. I know everyone has the crazy stories. That just came to my mind when I thought about Steel Valley Meltdown. And
that's also Franco's injury as well.
Yeah, that was a different one.
That's what I was going to say. That would have been the same year that Franco. Oh God,
I don't know if that was the same year, but yeah, that Franco did have that epic injury where he smashed his face, and I didn't want to go that dark, but.
I mean, he's a ray of sunshine now. Just seeing that, after seeing the injury and then seeing him now, he makes me smile every time I see him now. That his face is fine, because that was one of the more terrible injuries I've seen kind of firsthand. I was right there with a camera too. Yeah. So it was like, oh, Jesus Christ.
I think I have your footage still from that. Did you film it like a VX? Was that you?
Yeah.
I still have all that raw footage still. You must have sent it to me for some reason. I still have all that. Nice. I don't revisit that ever, but I do still have it. And it seems like that is, I never started a contest. You both have held contests of your own. And that seems like such a burden, or like something that, like, if someone gets really hurt, like it's just like my responsibility. It's just my fault that this happened. Like, do you ever feel that when you have these events? Because anything could happen in skating.
Yeah, I mean, part of it is, it's a live event, so you really just have to kind of give it up to the circumstances that, that there's a possibility for that happening. There was that, and then there was a, I think that same Steel Valley, we might have had 2 separate injuries that the ambulance had to come, because there was another really bad ankle injury that we had at Vertigo as well. That might have been a BitterCold, where the ambulance had to come and kind of take him out. But really, I mean, the fortunate part that I think if that happened today, the entire tone and the mood of the skate park would just shift monumentally. But, we were young and stupid enough at that point that you were able to maintain the energy. Everybody knew he was going to be okay. I'm pretty sure we stopped the contest after Franco's injury. But nothing else, the reason that I always joke for no backflips at Modern was because when we would do qualifications and all the young kids would come out, it was just backflip after hitting their head on the ramp, after just falling and just face. It was too much, trying too hard, and just a lot of kind of minor head injuries at that point. They were typically wearing a helmet, but it's something you have to kind of be wary of, but just kind of leave it up to the rollerblading gods at the same time.
Was that a real thing with the backflips? Like,
oh
did you really say no backflips? I don't remember people doing backflips like that.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's even language in Modern's waiver that you cannot go inverted because, especially with the launch box and everything I don't know where it came from. I don't know why that was the go-to, but at the beginning of every round, someone would just fucking chuck it, and not have the legs to land it. And it was carnage, and it was hard to watch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. That got me to thinking, and it kind of goes back to you building these really big obstacles. Yeah. I remember you helped me with some of the events I was throwing in New York, the New York City Street Invitational. And around the third one, we had a really bad injury. And a part of that was due to the fact that we kept on around that era just building bigger and bigger obstacles and having it be gnarlier and gnarlier. And then that manifesting into turning into an injury. I know I had feelings of guilt for a while, but did you experience any of those feelings? If you're throwing an event, you're hosting an event, if anything happened, not just an injury, but if anything kind of went off the board, was there a feeling of guilt, or was it just that's part of it, that's how it goes?
Yeah, I mean, Franco's was tough, but part of that too was connected to. He was pushing himself on something that had kind of already existed in the skate park. I think where that would have really came up to me is if somebody, if any of those the big black wall that we built for 2010, or that, that really large, we were talking about the rainbow structure that we did in 12. I think if somebody would have just brutalized themselves on that, that would have been the same feeling that you're kind of talking about is oh shit, we got to dial it back, pull the plug on that. That was too far. Luckily, that really, kind of never came to being. All the injuries that happened, took place within stuff that, had been in the skate park or been existing for years. It doesn't take away from it because you're still putting people in an environment where they feel like they need to keep pushing and keep pushing. But yeah, I mean, it's just part of kind of what goes with it. And, I feel lucky enough that, the list of injuries that I can talk about that have happened, I can fit on one hand that, it's not more substantial or longer than that.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Yeah, I agree. I can see that all being, that's all part of it. And like you said, mine with Fabio, and then yours probably with Franco. Granted, you didn't build the obstacle, but there's a sense of responsibility and guilt there, I think, at times. So yeah, I was just wondering with that.
But that guy, my bad, Billy, real quick. That Franco injury, if you want to see the light and everything, Franco made it to MTV because that got some exposure for rollerblading. If you want to he was on Scarred when that was a thing.
That might be why you have the footage, because I sent it to you because you were coalescing it together to send to get Franco paid.
I forgot about that, but yes, Franco did get paid for that. And but that's also probably why a lot of these events like Blading Cup have the smaller obstacles, because they're way more friendly, less injuries, more likely to happen. So, I mean, people got to look at it that way too. People have killed themselves at events, or almost literally killed themselves at events. So when you don't dumb the obstacles down a little bit, like Blading Cup, it's a lot more friendly, way less injuries, way less chance for people to get seriously injured. So that's definitely a plus in that aspect.
Yeah. The Scarred or whatever, that was the GoFundMe for injuries before.
That's true.
That's a good way to look at it. How do we
Yeah.
make something positive? How do we get this guy paid from this?
Exactly.
That's so
It's
funny.
MTV Scarred.
Oh my God, I love that. So yeah, it went through a few different stages. It ended up finding at the end Modern as its home, to where like a lot of those epic memories from Bitter Cold ended up coming. And that's when I think it was at its peak. That's when it became like an event that like you could not miss. Even though the Vertigo had like a very nostalgic time, it was not. And you still had like a lot of, Eric Bailey had some epic moments there, and like a lot of like the best skaters came and participated in that. But the one at Modern was like cannot miss moment. There was a point when obviously, did you feel like when it was coming to an end, or your last one, was it, we all get older, we transition to other parts in life. Contests take it takes a lot of work. And often there's not the reward financially for the work that gets put in. You don't often see that. It's often a labor of love. It's often for the passion, at least in my experience. So was there, when you were getting it to Modern and it was getting to that era, was there a point where you were thinking, how long does this last before you made the decision to end? Like, how did that start manifesting?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, in some ways there's a lot of complicated factors that go into it, but in other ways it's actually a lot simpler than that. Like you were talking about, there was, the event was still gaining momentum when it was a Vertigo. There was the great moment, in 06 with Bailey, that 360 sweat stance. That was kind of one of those that was just heard around the world. And then 07 was Jesus Christ, the battle between Aragon and Haffey in the final round, just going at it. That really kind of elevated everything. And then 08 just took things to a whole nother level because, the momentum for Vertigo carried over to this huge facility. So, the tricks at the flow, Roscow's 540, Haffey's just massive 3 soul, where he kind of came off the kicker down to it, the photography and everything from that, let alone like Frankie's huge 540 and all the stuff that, was done in that park, just carried momentum over into Modern. And then, 09, things just hit a whole nother level. And then we put in bleachers in 10, and that was everything for me. The 2010 event, putting in the bleachers, Jesus, I feel like I'm going to black out just talking about it, but, directing a television pilot while organizing the event at the same time to kind of get everything captured, just looking back, I don't know what the hell I was thinking. Like, I wasn't on hard drugs. I should have been. I don't know where all the energy came from. But, that was just me just pushing and pushing and pushing, and seeing how much we could do. And like you said, I think everything that coalesced in that finals and everything that we captured for that pilot, so Ichiro, Shima, Aragon, Haffey, Sizemore, Montre, everybody just, and Broscow too, Jesus. Like, the people in that finals, it was beyond anything I ever could have imagined. Capturing it, and Bellino, duh, he's the one that got carried off. But just capturing that, being not only doing the event but then presenting it in a way afterwards, getting such a positive response to it, so many views, being taken seriously by ESPN. I think, it's weird to say, but in some ways that was the beginning of the end. Because for me at that point, there was so little left to do that would be more than that. And that really kind of started to sink in 11 and 12. Not only, because of everything that happened in 10, but also that also coalesced with, a recession, a lot of stuff kind of going by the wayside in blading, a lot of companies going out, a lot of other factors kind of going into it. But that's really what happened, and that's really what sunk in for me. Was, it was something I was so proud of and still so proud of. So much work went into it, and to kind of just string that along and have that be something of a shadow of itself. Once those thoughts kind of started to articulate in my head, I couldn't go on with it. I couldn't just stretch it out further than, was available to me.
I completely, I did my research for this podcast, and it completely slipped my mind that you were able to get BitterCold on TV.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, that was, it was a secondary thing. Legitimately, the entire purpose of the pilot was, hey, what if we had that conversation? It's so funny because we're like full circle already. The whole reason we were doing the first event was like, fuck X Games. And, 10 years later, we're doing a pilot, be like, hey, do you want us back in the X Games? That type of thing. The entire intention of it was to just, I had no intention, it would have been awesome if somebody bought that and was like, hey, we'll order 6 episodes. You can do 1 for each major WRS event at the time, do a similar broadcast for Winter Clash, Barn Burner, the other events that were taking place. It would have been great, and it would have been a dream come true. But really the reality of the situation was, we never really knew that was attainable. It was more just a conversation starter to see where corporate sponsorship could come from, opening avenues outside of just talking. We put in the work. Let's see what we can do with it, and let's see where it goes. Because, for me, over the course of everything, my entire life, talk is very, very, very cheap. And the only way that I've been able to make anything happen, make anything manifest, even if it's indirect, is just putting in a metric fuck ton of work into it. And that was my way of doing that. And it was, we, had conversations with ESPN, and that sort of thing. Nothing really manifested, and ended up just kind of dumping it off to a cable provider that kind of put it in circulation in a bunch of different areas. But yeah, I mean, there was really the secondary goal of that was really kind of more the primary, is to just see if there was a market out there and if it was attainable, which, as we've kind of seen over even the past decade, 15 years, presenting rollerblading like that on TV comes in spits and starts. Blading Cup did it, but it's not something that you can establish and have the money to do a tour and a series and 6, 12 episodes or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's really tough, but being able to do that is just really, really special, because like there's a lot of these things like we have, and I know we were part of those meetings at Modern back in the day. Those RFCC meetings where we're sitting in the room and they have the industry leaders and we're trying to figure out, where does it go? How do we make blading come back again? Was like the whole talk. And it's just cool to see that through like an organic and slow process, a lot of these ideas were able to manifest and go somewhere. I mean, I know that was huge. I remember being at, I'm not sure if it was, I don't think it was Bar, but I think it was like one of those, like maybe even a Wild Wings nearby, or so I can't think of it off the top of my head. But being at the event, like at a place to eat after the event, and seeing it on TV with like our friends, and how cool that was for us, like a lot of us were so like invested into the blading culture and still are, and to see like that happen it was really cool for you to be able to bring that to like a lot of the people and the skaters.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I mean, the one thing, we talked about it earlier, and, if I can preach anything, it's that, that didn't happen because of a great conversation or like a great idea, or like you had said in the, the WRS meetings. It wasn't like, I have an idea and it just happened and everything was peachy and rollerblading was saved. It was because Me and the other people that were, wanted to work on that were willing to put in the work and really willing to go above and beyond any sort of singular idea or anything like that and just make something happen. And that's really where it came from. And like I mentioned, that's anything good that I've gotten, from rollerblading to starting my own company. It's putting in that work. And that's really what I would try to emphasize and kind of share with anybody that's watching.
Yeah, there was a lot of work that got put into that TV pilot. For anyone who hasn't seen it, by the way, I have it linked in the video description of this YouTube video. Go check out afterwards the pilot. Was it 2011 or 2010?
2010. I mean, I don't think we released it until 11. I think we even premiered it the next year. Because it was a lot of editing. Mickey and Arlo commentating. A lot we could have learned from it. And looking back, there's a lot we could have done better. But also looking back, it's like, how the shit did we even accomplish that in the first place? Because like I said, the event and doing that at the same time, it was just insane.
Mm-hmm. And it doesn't look like you guys slacked at all because it came out so official. It looks legit. It looks like it's straight off of ESPN or like TV, something like that. So you guys did an awesome job with that. Did you guys ever lose any money on these events? I know John lost money when he did the TV thing for Blading Cup. I know Yo-Yo with Winter Clash was this the first year that Winter Clash was not in debt from like 2010 or something like that also, which is crazy to hear. But, that shows how much love that you guys put into these events because you're doing all this for the love of it, not only for the love of it, but sometimes it costs you money as well. And it's a financial burden. Have you guys experienced that at all or no?
No.
Wow. Congratulations for that.
I mean,
you can do it right, guys. You can do it right.
Yeah. I think part of the connection was that, it was really, we weren't renting the park in the early days of the park. So it literally was, the skate park was just opening up and, taking all that money. And it was very beneficial to Blindside, very beneficial to Vertigo. We didn't completely take on the full finances of the event until 2008. And I mean, really, you could say, the previous years before that, it was for the love because, I'd be like, hey, I did the event. Can I have $500? I'd be like, sure. Which, as soon as I found out in 2008 was pennies on what we were actually making as far as the event goes. But it was at a time where I just wanted to make it happen. The money was really never that important. But then, the attendees, the trade show, were really, and never mind, there were some years where we had up to 250 competitors. All of those combined, really always kept us in the green. Looking back, like I said, 250 competitors. There were some trade shows where we had, almost 30 companies. And it's like, looking back on some of those lists, it's like, try to name 30 companies right now. I don't even know where they all came from. It was so much support in so many different ways that we were really kind of always able to stay in the green. Whether it be smart decisions, luck, maybe we didn't take a big enough risk, but even this year I was really happy because we spent a lot on travel and accommodations for CJ, Broscow, Cadeau, bringing them back, bringing them in, and we were still able to stay in the green for it.
That's awesome to hear. It's amazing the sacrifices that we make as skaters to all these years trying to get skating back in the mainstream with all these things. And I mean, to hear that you aren't in debt, at least from it, is amazing too. So I just remember too that Winter Clash Yo-Yo, they try to do something similar, but in a different way where they put it in an arena and they try advertising it to all the local media and everything and try to have just open to the public more rather than just a closed skating event. So that's pretty much what you guys try doing as well, just to get it out in the public. I guess if it ever does happen again, it'll just happen naturally on its own. I think as just a community, we kind of almost gave up on that for now at least.
Well, and even kind of doing the event again, I think there would need to be some larger outside driving force to really kind of take things to another level, to manifest something different, larger. Even at this sort of scale, I think long term it would need more significant investment from within the industry to really set up a core to make things happen, so that an event of this size wasn't so horrifically dependent on how many people register, how many people get in the door, and that sort of thing. Because there are advantages to the event, to the industry, to our culture, to everything as a whole, that makes them very valuable, that they shouldn't necessarily be entirely dependent on the person that's organizing it and putting it together. I would love if there was some sort of mechanism that would make that investment outside of the singular transactions of the people coming in the door or are participating in the event.
Mm-hmm. First of all, thank you for answering all these questions and going so far in depth on all this stuff. This is really interesting stuff. I have a few more questions, and I'm sure Austin has some too before we open it up to guests. Is there any person that you look and say, they never came to BitterCold, I really wish they had? Do you have anyone on the list like that?
That's a good question.
Two.
Okay.
Sagona and Latimer.
Wow, Dominic never attended.
No, Dominic has. Weird. Dominic has. I remember Billy. I remember me, you, and Sagona talking on top of the box one year. It was the same year as the pilot, I think, with the A-frame. You sure that he never been there?
10.
I remember specifically me.
I mean, he might have just been walking around being like super cool.
Probably not competed. Yeah. I'm like 99% sure that me, Billy, and Dominic. I remember a conversation we had on top of one of the ramps about how cool a specific trick would look on that A-frame that we were talking about. But Latimer,
that's entirely possible, and that sounds like something. But I mean, Latimer is an obvious one.
Right.
Just because he's Dustin Latimer. But then Sagona for me, just seeing him kind of do any of his stuff around the entire park would have been a treat. But and there was discussions of him and Richard and Martino coming out, but that didn't manifest. So I was bummed to not see him, because I would have begged, pleaded, paid, cheated, did whatever I could to get him on the course. So
that's a good one too.
That would have been nice.
Those are good eras too, of like Latimer skating also during that time too, where he was doing all the crazy shit. I guess skating very similar to Dominic as well.
Yeah.
So on the last event in 2013, and I want to get to what made you want to bring back this new event, what pushed you to do that. But before that, at the 2013 event, while it's happening, while it's occurring, in your head, are you like, there's not going to be one next year? Did you know? Was it premeditated?
Yeah. I think about that, and I think it was shortly after the 2012 event, I was shoveling my driveway and I realized I only wanted to do one more. It's just kind of one of those that just, it clicks, and then you're like, that's not going away. That's happening. And part of me just feels like a massive dickhead for putting everybody through that last event and then kind of telling everyone afterwards. But, the other half of me, there's just absolutely no other way I could have done that. I could not have made the announcement beforehand and made it through the event. All those conversations, the continuous, just keep doing it for the love or anything I maybe it would have been better, and maybe it wouldn't have been as bad that I was kind of manifesting in my head. But, to me, that was just the only way I knew how to do it. And part of it was that I didn't want everyone to experience the event as if it was the last event. I wanted everyone to just experience the event and then end it afterwards. Is it entirely my say to make that choice for everybody? Like I said, call me a dickhead if you want. Very, very warranted. But that was just the way I decided to do it, and the way I kind of felt I had to do it.
I'm not gonna
Totally.
I'm not gonna call you a dickhead, but I remember being very pissed that because that was like the first bitter cold I missed in like 10 years or something like that, or
Yeah.
like maybe 8 years. I happened to miss that one, and then afterwards I found out that I was the last one. I was like,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't take anything.
I
I
mean,
don't take anything on it.
Yeah, I mean that's part of it too. But also that that was the time when everyone's kind of transitioning into where we are now. Is that I'll catch the next one, I'll do the next one, and we talked about it ever so briefly. Is I think the magic of this one was I didn't leave that as a possibility for anybody. You weren't going to plan on catching the next one. Like you had to make this one happen, and that was really, kind of, I think what made this year so special.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a perfect segue to talk about what it is that motivated you to bring this event back. So after, and first of all, the first 13 events, that's something that's not easy to do. Running a contest is very difficult. There's a lot of moving parts. And so while some may have been upset, I would just say thank you for producing those 13 events just to begin with, because that in and of itself is a very difficult thing. This is coming from someone who's done 3 events, and then I was just like, holy shit, this is too much. But was there, I'm sure you had people calling you after 2013, oh, come on, you got to do it again, or like the random sporadic messages with the push. But what solidified you moving forward and trying to get this one going this past year?
Well, so I think it was a combination of a couple things. The obviously the distance that everybody had during COVID, the separation, Winter Clash being canceled, not having, those events to bring everybody together. I think COVID made it so much more obvious to me that there just weren't a lot of events like this to start with. So, I felt like there was a place for it. But beyond that, the only thing that really, before talking to Modern, before having conversations with anybody, I reached out to the past winners. Because for me, I think the only way that I wanted to make it happen is if we could do something different, if we could do something exciting, and we could do something that kind of honored the history of the event, and the awesome list of winners that we have, that are all insanely relevant today. Like you, Billy, Sean, Roscoe, Cadeau, CJ, we didn't get Bailey, but the Montre, everybody is so relevant today. And I think that's where it really started, was, talking to Roscoe and, getting some of those people that don't seem to be really excited about anything, excited about the idea of having the event again, really kind of helped push it forward. And then, kind of having the conversation with Modern, they were down immediately. It was funny visiting there over Thanksgiving. Our planning meeting was like a half an hour. It's not, we've done it before. We knew what we were doing. We're going to do it again. So it really kind of all clicked into place. But, a combination of those different things that I just, it's a very satisfying feeling, but I just had a feeling that doing this one more time would be special. It would be wanted, and it would be attended. And we really had that in spades. And, that really, having that thought and then manifesting it is always a lot of fun to kind of see it come together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's certainly as you get older, and it's hard to participate so actively in the rollerblading community. You're a family man, you're a father, you run your own business, and with that in and of itself, it's so hard to find time within the day a lot of the time.
Yeah.
I don't have kids, and I'm just working and married and with the dogs, and I'm like, where is the time nowadays? Like, it's not as carefree as it once was at some point. But it's cool that you were able to make that time. And like I said, it really felt like a time machine, like a capsule, and such a gift to everyone who was a part of those events from the past, because all the familiar faces. And I'm not sure if you saw the edit that Sam DeAngelis made of just like the capturing the faces there. And that was, I thought that was really well presented with just like the emotional aspect of what that meant to so many people. So that's really cool that you were able to bring that together in such a way again. And thank God that our community has moved past the vertigo days of being banned from hotels, and it got to be like this mature event for adults, but also for kids too, like that were new to experiencing skating, and just see some new faces. Lorik Picard comes off the top of my head, and some of these like younger people like showing who they are and getting to participate in just a little bit of what we had, like we're so fortunate to have at that time.
Yeah, well, and it's funny that I mean, I felt the time machine thing too. It is just, just seeing more gray, a little bit more pounds on, like, everybody, if it was really a time machine, it'd be great for everybody to go back 10 years and have their 10-year younger body. That would be great.
Oh yeah,
too.
that'd be nice.
Damn,
because, there was so many comments of being like, holy shit, it's fucking old in here. Like, we're just all old and crusty now. So it was really, it was a time machine. But yeah, just kind of everybody grasping at their youth. But and then also, Sam and I had actually had a discussion about, kind of what he wanted to do at the event before the event had even kind of kicked off. And, I had thrown out to him that BMAG was kind of doing a photo booth, and he kind of took that as like, wait, I can do kind of a video portraits of everybody and kind of put that together. And we were like, done. Because the other thing too is, with career-wise, everybody behind a video camera, this is going to be like a very two-sided statement. So many people that are, very extended in their video careers, like Sam, like a lot of other people, he really wanted to do something different rather than just be on the course chasing who was ever skating the entire time. He kind of wanted to put his own thumbprint on something from the event, and that's what he ended up doing. Fucking beautiful. So glad he did that. But on the other hand, people like Dave Payne, I don't know what he was on, chasing everybody on the course, same thing with Chris Edwards, live on the floor, like two of the oldest godfathers in our industry were exerting the most amount of energy during the entire contest. That was like magical and bizarre at the same time.
I agree, and it was cool to see as like the closer we got to the event, that Dave was posting, oh, he's going to the event. It just like kept on adding and building to the event. And Chris has been very actively like big on like all these events. He goes to the events, he's live streaming, he's running all over the place. Yeah. And I think that's a part of the thing that made it for me feel like a time machine. Like, wow, like even there's Dave. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. It's like things have not changed. Here we go. And Director Brazil was there, who was like such a big part of like the former events as well.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
just all of that was so was really special. Mm-hmm. In a little bit, we're gonna open it up for questions for our live guests watching, and perhaps we have some on Patreon as well.
Yeah.
But the Champions Run, which was really special. What ignited that? What inspired that?
I mean, first and foremost, I had an idea of like, how could I blind Billy in a way that didn't, that wasn't ultimately like super suspicious, but definitely like hinder your sight for the rest of your life.
The spotlight was on my list of things to talk about too, specifically the spotlight.
I gotta say this, Daniel, I was like knowing that I was gonna have like a solo thing for a minute there. Like we can blame it on the light. The light definitely I should have came from the other direction, but I was like, to quote Eminem, my palms were sweaty, and I was like really nervous to have that kind of platform as someone who really is like, I'm involved in skating heavy, but not as like a traditional pro as I once was. And I was like, wow, this is like a super high anxiety moment. I was talking with Alex and also Sean, and he was like, I think they were feeling the same way. Alex, like, this is a lot. So
Yeah.
I think although it was like a high anxiety and a high stress moment, it was really special to also like have that accolade and to have that that platform and that respect given for like the past events, and also to like for the people watching, like special for them as well. So I thought that was cool.
Well, yeah, and I mean, so if you look at the list of champions, you have complete and total showmen and just hams in front of the crowd on one end of the spectrum, like Montre, and I think Kudo really kind of eats that up. And then you have on the other end of the spectrum, you have like Alex, Sean, yourself, that are like, what the fuck is happening? I want to die and curl up into a ball. So, for me, it was really, it was kind of, like you had said, it was trying to figure out a way to do it. And, it's not like we had rehearsals or anything like that. We really just kind of had to wing it once everybody was on the course. I had talked a lot with Matt and Tracy on how to go about it. The DJ was really kind of in tune with everything that was going on. So we really put as much thought and care and work as we possibly could into it, and then just kind of let it unfold from there. The spotlights were a little bit last minute, but once I found out I could rent them and how powerful they were from the same company that was bringing the stuff from the trade show, I was like, I'm going to fucking make it work because it's going to elevate everything. Also, the park's lights, they're LED now, so we could just flip them on and off. It wasn't going to be one of those things, so we turn them off, and then 20 minutes later, the lights will be back up. So just kind of all those things kind of ended up coming together that, literally it was just, even if it spooked you, it kind of spooked Alex, it kind of spooked Sean. It was worth it for, that photo of Montre, those moments, there's that Brzezinski in his edit, there's that shot of CJ just backsiding the laid back wall ride underneath the spotlight. It was worth it just for those moments. And the intention always was to turn the lights back up and just kind of let you guys have your runs. If I had it my way, I would have kind of extended the spotlight part just a little bit more. But yeah, that was the first thing out of Montre's mouth was like, get that goddamn light out of my eyes. As much as a showman as he is, yeah, it's a little distracting, and it was a bummer we couldn't, in figure skating or anything that utilizes that sort of presentation, they're much higher up. So, we got them up as high as we could, but still, we could only mitigate so much. But I think it really kind of separated things from the rest of the event, gave it that different look just for those little brief moments of everybody's first runs. And that was really the entire intention of it. We utilized them again to announce the winner, but you see the footage and it jumps out. And for me, it's kind of one of those things, it's worth the work. It's worth putting in the effort. Because who knows, maybe somebody else will take it a step further in the future. Anybody kind of doing a contest with lines and runs, maybe there's another way to do the spotlight in the future that's more of a show. So yeah, that was really kind of where it all came together. But then also, just to answer your further question, was that, I wanted to do something different. I wanted to do something special. And I really wanted to give a moment for all of those past winners to shine, to take a bow, to really get the kind of praise and in-person praise that's not just, likes, views, reels, any of that shit. That very much an in-person praise that I wanted to shower on all those past champions.
despite a lot of the writers not enjoying it, like Billy, I was gonna say that a lot of the content that came out of it was great. Like the photos were well. It was very different too from contests because you haven't seen that in a skating contest. At least I haven't seen that anyway. It was really cool, and they weren't rollerbladers operating the lights, right?
Oh no, it was Al
Al
DeLega and it was my
Oh.
boy Garrett Michelin. Yeah, they knew what they were doing.
Okay.
And after Monterey, I pinged them both because there's an intensity on the spotlights, so they both turned them down all the way. But like I said, those were probably about the strongest. Besides those crazy outdoor shining Batman signal in the cloud type of spotlights, these are about the most powerful indoor theatrical spotlights that you could get. So even turned all the way down, there's just only so much they could do. They were trying to avoid their eyes after the first couple tricks, but we did our best, but it manifested, like you said, in some good media, and then we kind of moved on from there.
Yeah, we need sunglasses for the riders next time. I think that'll be cool. That'll make even cooler looking photos, actually, in that sense.
Be cool.
I just want to say that we're talking about a lot of stuff here. I have references to a lot of this in the video description. I have the edit that Video Groove just put out yesterday. That was awesome. I have Sam DeAngelis' edit that Billy talked about. I have this edit from Older Blading, who provided the awesome content for the intro to this video. That's all linked down below. So definitely check that out, as well as the TV pilot also. With all these things that are going on, we talked about a lot, a span of 20 years through all these contests. We have to talk about a little bit of like the highlights or your most memorable moments from BitterCold over all these years, because there's been so many. We mentioned a lot of them too. Everyone has their own personal, but somebody who has organized it, like what makes you most proud from all of these events that you did, the 13, 14 events that you did?
Yeah, I mean, I think I already mentioned, 2010 was really just kind of the peak of everything for me. Being able to accomplish all of that. Of course, there's just those moments of performance in the contest of, that front foot of Bailey locking in 2006. The crowd surrounding Alex when he's just charging, a quarter mile across that park in 08 to hit that 540. Just all of those moments were always, so great. But then, the other side of it too is barely having room to walk in the trade show area in like 9, 10, and a little bit in 11. Those are it's a blur because it's a blur, but AJ had a photo of just a bed full of cash from one of those events. And just knowing, the mechanism that I had created that was benefiting so many of those companies that I loved and respected, that's really just as powerful as a pride moment and everything for me as it was, all of the highs of rollerblading throughout everything. But really, other than that, we joke and everything, but really, I think the two things coming away from this year that just really stuck with me was, the champion session that came together better than I could have imagined. I really could have just stopped the event at that point and I would have been happy. Nobody else would have been happy, but I would have been happy. And the other thing that really kind of stuck with me that I was really surprised about, I don't know why I'm surprised about it, but going into this year, I had a little bit of anxiety that there was going to be those discussions like, yo, man, keep it up. Keep doing it for the love. Keep doing it for the love. And like, yeah, that's fine. But, those conversations are very annoying. Instead, it was like 100 people just walked up to me and said, thank you. Like, shook my hand, gave me a hug, and then like walked away. And like, for me, like, I love, talking rollerblading and, interacting with everybody, but I only have so much time. There's only so much of me to go around the event that I can't articulate how much I appreciated that. It was very, very moving, very unexpected, and very, very much appreciated from everybody that kind of took the time to do that, because yeah, I mean, it's a very, as Billy mentioned, it's a very, I don't want to pat myself on the back. It sounds aggrandizing, but it's a very selfless act to do, events like this. You're putting everything into making sure everybody else enjoys themselves. So a thank you is a small thing, but it was wildly appreciated.
Dude, we love you, man. You done so much for the community, and we all
Thank you,
appreciate you so much. And
thank you, thank
if everyone in the chat, everyone watching right now, could give you a hug, I'm sure they would, for sure.
you. And somehow did not get COVID. So
And you didn't get COVID. There you go. I know we're gonna move it over to the live chat and questions and stuff in a minute. There's one more thing I wanted to ask, kind of along the lines we were just talking about, but talking about like highlights and memories and stuff like that. But is there anything behind the scenes at any of the events, at any of the Bitter Cold events, that stands out to you that people might not have known about? Like, I know there's a lot of hurdles and struggles with organizing these massive, massive events. Is there anything that happened behind the scenes that oh, I pissed on this fire before it got anywhere, or anything like that that stands out to you that no one knows about?
yeah, I mean, nothing super negative that comes to mind.
Doesn't have to be negative, just like something that crazy happened behind the scenes, maybe that
I
no one knew
mean,
about.
I think the thing that I would articulate is one of the crazier moments for me was, like I mentioned, we first started doing all the finances on our own in 2008. And to do that, we literally just were like, hey, moms, who's bringing a kid? Can you run admissions for us? So literally, we just had a small group of mothers run admissions for the event, all in cash. And at the end, she was like, hey, here's your admissions, handed me a paper bag full of over $8,000 in cash. And I was like, oh, shit. So then I didn't know it was $8,000 at the time because they just brought in all the money. So we had a premiere after the '08 event, downtown Columbus, Ohio. I was literally in my car counting all of this cash, and then like locked it up and kept it in my car, and then like went into the premiere and was like, yo, Alex, I have $8,000 in cash in my car. Can you stop by and pick that up afterwards? And then it's your problem to deal with. But that was really, behind the scenes kind of jarring memory that I'm glad we didn't have to experience again, was just kind of handling all that cash. That, having a more proper admissions front desk and everything at Modern really was preferable to just walking around with that much cash.
You got older and more professional at that point.
Yes.
Makes sense. All right. I feel like we should jump into some of these. Are there any Patreon questions, Austin?
We have Patreon questions.
Great.
Oh yeah, we have Patreon questions.
Okay.
We prioritize the Patreon questions first. We only get to the top 3 because we have a lot of questions. Aldeliga, man. Aldeliga, when we have somebody he likes, he really likes them. And he has a billion questions here. But like I told Al, you know the rules. Only top 3 go for the show. So let's start it off with first question we have on Patreon from Faction Skate Company, who says, what salary number would get us a Bitter Cold Showdown each year? Benefits, dental?
I think the only thing I have to say the word out loud that rollerblading can't afford it. The business that I started, I've been very fortunate that a lot of the skills that I learned, kind of organizing, keeping everything on track, has benefited me very well in the production and commercial arena. That it's just it's not in the cards, and I hate being the person saying that and delivering that message, because I would love to have all the time, energy, and resources in the world to do all the things that make me happy. But just like everybody else, I kind of got to focus and channel that in on the things that, benefit me the most and work well the most with my life and family and everything else. So
that's completely understandable. We all growing up, and I think you worded that wrong though. Rollerblading can't afford it yet.
Yes.
We're still optimistic, aren't we?
There you go. Optimism. And here's the thing. If rollerblading could afford it, yes, you could do a BitterCold. That'd be fine. If I had the resources, the one thing, even if I don't know, if the resources were available, the one thing that I would manifest, that I would make happen, MTV Sports and Music Festival downhill course within a city. Not steep, crazy, just a little bit of a slant. Get some shipping containers, get everything out there so it's really articulated and kind of like runs from the top to the bottom. That's your event. That's one thing that I would, the resources for that's one thing I would have trouble staying away from. But just because mostly too is like that's something new, that's something different, that's pushing something, that's, bringing something elevated to rollerblading. BitterCold is great, but somebody else can do BitterCold. Like I said, I'm not special. There's nothing super unique about me. It's not going to have the name BitterCold, but there are people. I refuse to believe that there are not people in this industry that can do a better job than I have.
I know you did a pretty good job, but I know what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. The torch got to be handed over to somebody.
Yeah. It feels like time to me. And I'd rather put the pressure on other people to really step up and make it happen, because I think in the long run, that's going to benefit us all more, to get more people involved, to get more energy, to get more youth, to get more everything within rollerblading.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that. Good answer. Second question from our Patreon is from Jeff Metz, who asks, what was your favorite one last time memory? And if you could have changed anything, what would it be? I'm guessing this is all just in reference to the last BitterCold this year.
Yeah. Well, but that one last time, is ingrained from the event, like back to, 06 or 05, like that was just kind of something that, that happened over and over and over again with Ben. Talk about a showman, just pushing and pushing and pushing and wanting that one last try. But yeah, I think, God, I don't know. I think, I think Ben's 540 kind grind in 06, was really the start of that one more time, manifestation. And I think, that's really where the memory kind of comes from. Of course, he was doing that at other events. Of course, it's Ben. But I think that's really kind of where it took root at BitterCold.
Mm. That's awesome. So like I said before, Aldeliga came up with like 7 questions or something like that in the Patreon. We're only going to get to one of them. It's so hard picking just one, but I'm going to go with this one. Who Aldeliga asks, says, do you think
it's turning into the Aldeliga Jump Street podcast right now? What's going on? We got to get a guest host. Guest host Aldeliga.
Al says, what types? Oh, hold on. I got to zoom in for this one. Do you think that the few larger blade events that we have left in the U.S., like Blading Cup, the New York City contest, Frankie's contest, as well as this event, achieve much in promotion for the sport, hopefully to spur some sort of participation growth, aka save rollerblading? Or are they, to be harshly realistic, now more of an inward-facing fan service type of thing?
Yeah, I think that's a good question, because like we talked about, I think the mentality for outward facing blade events and bringing people into the sport, I think especially during COVID, has changed so much for all of us. Because before COVID, it's every fucking whack idea you can possibly think of that will bring people into rollerblading, when really it just was a pandemic. That is so bizarre. But no, I think, Bashi Pope, Frankie Invitational, Blading Cup, Blading Cup has a larger reach into quads and kind of into the city. But I do think they are geared more towards us inside rollerblading, a manifestation of the culture, bringing people together that are core, that really, this is their entire life. This is what they've done forever, and they want to share that with other people. I think one of the lessons I learned in doing Bitter Cold, it's not a facility, a space, or anything to accommodate a purely general audience. I don't think they would enjoy it. I think there's video presentations that you can make of the contest that can expand and be seen by a lot of other people, but I don't think a lot of people want to sit through it in that type of space. So yeah, I think those contests are mostly geared towards us for the core.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's like what they tried doing on Winter Clash. It was, even though it was indoors in the arena one year, they tried opening it to the public, but still didn't really hit the mark like they planned on it. So it is tough.
Well, and hats off to Yo-Yo and Winter Clash for doing that, because it's one of those like what ifs that probably would have still been a what if without them doing that. And even in failure, that's some of the stuff we can learn the most. And it sucks that they failed doing that, but it taught us a lot that it can't necessarily translate in the middle of Berlin. In the city center, people don't just want to walk in and watch rollerblading.
Yeah. We're a very niche sport. People got to understand that too. Okay, so we're going to move on to our super chat questions. Like we say every episode, we split our super chats with our guests. If you want to support Daniel, super chat us, or if you want your question prioritized today, drop a super chat question as well. But we're going to move it on to our first super chat question from Rollerblading, who was the provider of that awesome footage in the intro of this episode.
Yeah.
Who asked, with your experience, what are the key tips, maybe top 3, you would want somebody to know who is trying to get their own blade comps off the ground or to grow their existing events?
Yes.
Yes. I had this question too, but I wanted to leave this for the super chats.
Yeah. I mean, this is, I have way more than 3, but I can just start rambling and then, shut up when I lose my voice is be on time. Rollerblade time is garbage. Be on time, because that coalesces with the expectations that you've given the crowd, that you've given everybody beforehand. Just be on time, and you have elevated yourself beyond a lot of other people in the industry and other contests. Number 1. Number 2, just every single avenue of website, social media presence, everything, do it all and do it often. Solidify a website, put all of the information in the website, continually look at that website and add anything else. I'll keep it updated. Same thing with social media. That was really kind of new for me this year, as Instagram and the way that really kind of took off is once I kind of started announcing riders, holy shit, that blew up. That really, kept going. I thought I was doing something cool with the sponsor announcements, but, just a photo in the rider's name, that really kind of took off. I think the third event is the third piece of advice is copy other events. Do what other people have done successfully. This isn't, it's not plagiarism or anything like that. Just do what other people have done. And then over the course of that, you'll find new ways, you'll find your own voice, you'll find ways to improve on what other people have done.
Love that. See what works.
Yeah.
Love that.
You want to take the next
we
one?
We have another super chat question from Xander, but before that, we have a super chat, just shout out from Sean Michelson. He said, much love, DK, for putting so much blood, pride, and truth into BCSD to truly create something with universal appeal. You showed so many bladers that creating something beautiful out of practically nothing is possible.
Ooh.
That's a very tricky comment from Sean, because he shouted out the two of the videos I've made. So in the Blood, Pride, and True and Universal Appeal.
Xander Williams comes with a fun question. He says, Daniel, what's your death row meal?
Jesus. I yeah, I mean it always depends, but lately I've felt like a 12-year-old and I've just been eating way too many freaking chicken fingers. It's the dumbest, stupidest thing on the planet,
It's the
but
best.
it's yeah. There's specifically a theater nearby, and you go to the movies and get some chicken fingers, and I've just had some stupid obsession with chicken fingers, chicken sandwich.
Nice.
That's an
Call
interesting
me
one.
cliche, call me a 12-year-old. That's where my head's at right
We'll
now.
blame it on fatherhood. That's what we'll do.
Yes.
It's quick and easy.
Michael Fromling had a super chat also, but it's the same one that Blading came up with. But thank you, Michael Fromling, for the super chat, asking also about tips on starting their own contests and events. So thank you, Michael, for that super chat. And I guess Clark just threw a super chat in here saying, rollerblading might not be able to afford it, but I can. And it won't let me highlight this thing. There we go. So thank you, Clark, for donating for it.
I can I can add to that ever so briefly, and kind of trying to start something, because I feel like starting from something from scratch can feel so daunting, and I think part of what I think anybody that wants to do something like Bitter Cold, wants to do something like an event, needs to consider and needs to be aware of is that it's not necessarily going to all come together the first time you do it. I think, in starting an event, you need to be prepared to do it for 2 or 3 years. That's your starting an event. And I think that's the mentality that so many people need to latch on to, because, the first time you're going to have the event, you're not going to have any photos or video of the event. So that's one of the things that really builds momentum with any sort of event, is the collection of people performing at the event venue during the event. And you need to have a couple years under your belt to have that together and to be able to weaponize and utilize that in reels and social media and all those assets. So I think that's another piece of advice is, you can't just dip your toe in it and be like, I wasn't as much as I thought, so move on. You just need to do it and do it again and do it again, at the very least. Then whether you have something, whether you can move forward with it, you can grow it. But before then, I just don't think there's any way to really know.
That's a great point. I never thought about it like that.
Yeah, it's also good to consider. We're so used to like social media and how the world works in this current era that you did most of this before all of that.
Yeah.
Very organically. It's very interesting to think about.
Yeah, I sequence message board. Shout out to Law.
Oh my god!
Very early in the event. I didn't get a chance to talk to him at the event. I pinged him an email afterwards, and I was like, actually, the first couple of years, all promotions were via the sequence message board. And he sent me like a way back time machine link of like a 2003 post.
Oh, sick.
Absurd to think about. That was our social media then, was rollerblade message boards.
Boomer
Amazing.
talk right there.
Yeah. Embarrassing.
Well, we got 2 more questions in the live chat, and then we'll let you go. Again, thank you so much for your time. Very much appreciate you taking the time to talk to us about this, and hopefully to inspire someone to pick up where you left off in some sort of way to contribute to the community.
I hope somebody sees this as 2 hours of inspiration and not 2 hours of us just kind of rambling on about the past and, us being old and other responsibilities and all that sort of stuff. Because, really, it's fucking amazing to see, something like that all come together. And, this, like I've said over and over and over, so grateful I did it this year, and so grateful I'm only doing it once. So, it's kind of both sides of the coin for me.
Mm-hmm.
Ronnie Rascal says, where did the sledgehammer come from?
Oh, that's easy. Owner of Vertigo, Mark Yu. He was like, "Hey, why don't?" He kind of put two and two together that rollerbladers in the building are calling large tricks hammers. So he was like, "Why don't I get a sledgehammer and we'll get it painted?" Yeah, it really it came from him, and then we held on to the tradition. So it didn't start until 2006. So Bailey got the first hammer. Yeah, Bailey got the first hammer, and it survived his house fire. I don't know if anybody saw that photo, but it was one of the things that survived his house fire.
Dude, that's awesome. I never knew. I never even thought the story behind that too. But just for context, people who don't know, the winner of the BitterCold gets a huge hammer. So that's why the question came up. But yeah, I never knew that about Bailey's hammer. That it survived.
And it's even more enjoyable when CJ, Julian, people internationally get a huge sledgehammer. Like, you're not flying back with that. So usually we had to ship it, or the park would ship it or stuff like that. So, that was part of the fun of it too, is, it's a bitch to fly with. And, that was part of our fun too. So.
Very cool. And we'll take this as the last question. I think it's a good one to end off on, even though I think we touched on it. We haven't gotten into specifics. Daniel, what is your favorite trick out of all the BitterCold Showdowns? Favorite winning trick?
Is this go Ronnie?
This is Ronnie Rascal. Yep.
I think, I think for me, if I had to pick a favorite, because of what it represented and what it kind of did for the event kind of afterwards, Alex's 540 at the flow is so close. Haffy's 540 Soyal at 2010 that was just massive is also really close. But I don't think anything can compare to Montre's Misty Flip in 09. I just is it the most technical trick? Is it it was just such a manifestation of the success and the excitement, and seeing somebody new like Montre at the time step up and just outperform everybody and outshine everybody. And plus the photo, Jeremy Stevenson's photo of it is just absolutely iconic. I think that's the one that just really, really kind of steps out for me. Everything is kind of combined into that moment. And it was also one of the few events where you could point to a singular trick that was from the winner. We have so many other events where so much stuff goes down, that there's great photos from other competitors that were, not even on the podium. That was just kind of the peak and the pinnacle at that year, and that's one that just really sticks with me.
Love that. I love that answer. Again, thank you for your time. Do you have any last shout outs or words of wisdoms before we completely let you go?
God, I don't know what else I could add. I'm surprised we've kind of rehashed and gone through everything this much, but I think the one thing I want to end with is that if you are interested and you have the enthusiasm to do something like BitterCold, I am a resource. Like, reach out to me directly, email, send me an Instagram message or something. I will find it. I can give you any and all advice that I can possibly give you. Like, I'm very sincere about that. I'm not just kind of like, throwing it out there for no reason. It's what I want to mention, and I would be happy to impart and spew all of the information, all of the knowledge I've gained over the years, to see somebody else kind of take that and somebody else build that further. Nothing would make me happier, and I'm very sincere in offering that advice to anybody that wants it.
Damn, free online coaching from the man himself, Daniel Kinney.
I'll do a master class.
I was about to say, we got to do a TED Talk with you or something. Dude, Daniel, thanks for coming on. This has been awesome. Thank you everybody in the live chat. Hell yeah, thank you everybody in the live chat for coming. Daniel, I said it before, the whole industry is so grateful that we have you here, that you created this event that's lasted the span of 20-something years, that we all have these memories from that we'll carry on for the rest of our lives. We're all so grateful for that. So I just wanted to say.
I appreciate it, Austin. And thanks for having me. A little bit of a different topic than usual.
Yes, no, I love it.
But yeah, hopefully different content for everybody tuning into Jump Street.
This is one of my favorites so far. And
Thank you.
Yeah, even though BitterCold's not happening as of now, I hope to still see you in the future somewhere, and we catch up again, because it was great seeing you again. But thank you to Blank for sponsoring this episode again. Everyone check out the new Blank Team Skate, and I guess we'll see you all in the next one. Later, everybody.